Hello and welcome to the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. Today is Friday, January 5th, 2024. Several days ago when Stronghold Digital Mining had its news release announcing the acquisition of 5,000 additional Bitcoin mining machines, sort of like down below, there was a business update regarding how much Bitcoin had been mined in the month of December. And then it also provided some information about energy sales, meaning selling electricity to the grid. And then they basically provided a revenue estimate for December of 2023. So that would have been last month. So the revenue estimate for December 2023 was $8.5 million for that month. Now, pull out your cell phone, pull out a calculator, and let's do some math. 8.5 multiplied by 3 gives you 25.5. So if we are to expect Stronghold Digital Mining, or if we can expect Stronghold Digital Mining to be generating revenue of about, let's say $25.5 million per quarter at a bare minimum going forward, right? So let's just take that 8.5 million. Let's assume we can duplicate that now in the month of January of 2024. And let's further assume that we can duplicate that type of revenue for February as well as for March. We'd potentially be looking at bare minimum revenue of $25.5 million for Q1 2024. Now, I took a very careful look at our so-called FOG expenses, right? Fuel, operations and maintenance, general administrative. I took a look at those numbers for Q3 2023, right? So that would have been the end of the third quarter, and that number came out to $21.9 million, give or take a little bit. Let's just call it $22 million if you want. We'll round it up by that extra 100,000 or so. So imagine a scenario in which you have $25.5 million in bare bones revenue, and you then have expenses of about $22 million. So you suddenly have a scenario in which Stronghold Digital Mining's revenue inputs exceed its expense outputs. And even if you were, apologies for that, even if you were to also include interest payments, right, as part of that FOG expense picture, let's include the I for interest, you still would not be at a point where you're exceeding your revenue inputs. Because bear in mind, there's all these other things, from an accounting perspective that sort of get subtracted, added, depreciation, all this kind of stuff that's really non-cash. They're like non-cash items, okay? So you can have, stuff going on that doesn't result in money leaving the so-called bank account, right? Hey, paying for fuel, you got to cut a check for that. Operations and maintenance, that's real money. General and administrative, again, that's real money. Interest, yeah, Whitehawk isn't looking for some, IOU. They want money, right? So when we talk about those FOG or FOG-E, right, FOG-I expenses, that's really money out of the bank. So it's really interesting and I think somewhat inspiring and reassuring to see that as Stronghold Digital Mining continues to shrink expenses, that we're kind of getting to a point now where once our revenue inputs really start to take off, driven of course primarily by the price of Bitcoin and hash prices, because of course the price of Bitcoin heavily influences hash prices. Not to forget, of course, transaction fee revenue becoming more and more and more of a relevant part of that conversation. And needless to say, of course, right, that has to be counterbalanced with the network hash rate. So you can have really great Bitcoin prices, you can have really constructive transaction fees, right? But if you have a Bitcoin network hash rate that's just really out of control, then your hash prices may not necessarily look so great. The great news, the good news is that based on everything that we're seeing right now, it looks like we're shaping up to finally, at long last, have revenue inputs that are truly useful and helpful and that look really, really good. Remember, $8.5 million a month, that's kind of like we're sort of saying, hey, let's treat that as like a baseline number. Let's see if we can do better than that. Again, there's only so much that we can control. We can control our expenses. We can't necessarily control, right, our revenue inputs. However, we can control and influence whether or not we as a company are there to take advantage of those revenue inputs if and when they materialize. So that means we need Scrubgrass and Panther Creek to be online. We need them to be producing electricity. We need data centers that are currently being managed by Frontier Mining. We need Frontier to be doing their part to make sure that these data centers are as optimized as possible, that the Bitcoin mining machines inside those data centers are either being overclocked, underclocked, or whatever the case may be, to really maximize the amount of money that's being generated. And hopefully, in the not too distant future, we'll have yet another potential revenue input, right? In addition to being able to sell electricity to the grid, in addition to being able to mine Bitcoin, hopefully we're going to be able to capture carbon, CO2 from the atmosphere, and we're going to be able to translate that into very useful income in the way of carbon credits that we're able to then sell as a result of doing that, I think, important and meaningful environmental work. So with all of that said, I think there is a lot to be positive about just based on the December 2023 revenue estimate of $8.5 million for that month. I think if we begin to see that type of trajectory in revenue continue through 2024, at least the first part of 2024, I think it's going to set us up to be cash flow positive, right? Or to at least have positive adjusted EBITDA, to use the official phraseology that we see in our regulatory filings. Okay, my friend, have a wonderful weekend. We are getting a snowstorm here in Pennsylvania. I'll be monitoring grid prices. I'll be keeping an eye out the window, seeing what's going on. You never know. You just never know. Will this become another winter storm in which grid prices explode and Stronghold Digital Mining has the potential to direct all of the electricity that's being created at Scrubgrass and at Panther Creek? Can it sell that into the grid and generate some useful revenue in the process? We're going to find out. Okay, in the meantime, let's stay positive, let's be great, and we will see each other again sometime next week.